The winning blueprint presents.
In the lab room.
The weekend.
The weekend that was.
We're slate skating. We're slate skating. We're slate skating. We're slate skating.
So as we continue to go through the weekend that was, we find ourselves in Atlanta, where the Atlanta Falcons were hosting the Arizona Cardinals, and I thought this was going to be another one of these games that got out of hand, whether it was early or late. I just thought that this was going to be a game that the Falcons separated themselves from the Arizona Cardinals. And I thought it was going to happen quite early in this ballgame. I felt like the Falcons were going to come out, play inspired football. They were mad. They finally dropped one this season after starting the season 8-0. Thought they were going to come out and really take it to this Arizona Cardinals team. Now, they were coming off a bye, and so they had 2 weeks to prepare. Guys had a chance to get some rest and get away from the game for a while and come back, re-energize, recharge. They were on a 5-game losing streak, so they wanted to do nothing more than end that 5-game losing streak. Snap it, and snap it against a good football team on the road in the Atlanta Falcons. And so the Cardinals came out and they played inspired football. So much so that on the first play of the game, Matt Ryan throws an interception. These Cardinals pick him off. And this was the theme of the game. This was a theme. And something that I'm starting to see from Matt Ryan. You get to him early in a game and shake his confidence up, rattle him a bit, you can get to Matt Ryan for the rest of that game. I mean, we saw it against Oakland. This was the blueprint. Oakland got to him early in that game, forced 3 picks in the first half of that game. Now, they weren't able to come away with the win because that's what bad teams do. You get turnovers, you don't do anything with them, and you allow the team that's giving you the opportunity to dispose of them to hang around. You allow them to hang around the game, and good teams, if you allow them to hang around, they're eventually going to get you. It's going to come back to bite you. You don't win in this league turning it over 6 times and thinking you're going to walk away with the victory. But that's exactly the narcissistic attitude that the Atlanta Falcons had and got away with in this game. They actually had the audacity to think that they could turn it over 6 times and win. And you know what? Luckily enough for them, they were playing the Arizona Cardinals, because that's exactly what happened. Matt Ryan threw 5 interceptions in this game. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, 5. How do you win throwing 5 interceptions in the National Football League? When's the last time you can remember a quarterback throwing 3 or 4 picks and still finding a way for his ball club to get a victory? It's rare, because when you turn it over that many times, at least one of them is going for a pick 6. At least one. And 2 of those turnovers are probably resulting in touchdowns, whether it be 1 pick 6 and then they drive down with the short field and get another touchdown. You can't give up points. And then 2 more of those interceptions, at least 1, is going to result in a field goal. So we're talking 17, 20, maybe even 24 or 28 points that can be scored off of turnovers. The more you turn it over, the more points you're more likely to give up. And so, luckily enough for them, this Arizona Cardinals offense is anemic. I mean, their quarterback position is a joke. They might have the worst quarterback position in the league. No, they might not have the worst quarterback situation. They do have the worst quarterback situation. I feel so bad for Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, if you watch this game, the anguish on his face and the disdain on his face for the fact that he has to go another year without having a legitimate quarterback, it's so heartbreaking. You look at his face after he gets open and the ball is thrown 3 yards too far out of his reach on the pass that should have been a touchdown, or on 3rd down that he's open, or he's streaking down the sideline and he can't even get his mitts on the ball. You know, he's such a talented guy that if he just gets 1 hand on the ball, it can be a catch. If he gets 2 fingers on the ball, he might be able to tip it to himself and catch it. For him to not even be able to get his hands on the ball half the time, it's so frustrating, and if you're watching it, it's so disheartening because you see it on his face. I mean, he just wants a chance to have the ability to make plays. He just wants to turn the clock back to 2009 when he had Kurt Warner, when he knew all I got to do is my job, the ball will be there, and I can make a play. Those days are so far removed. Even though it only seems like yesterday, he was in the NFC Championship game. He was in the NFC Divisional round against the Packers, you know, scoring 45 points, scoring 38 points. But we're so far removed from that. He does not have a quarterback, and they don't have a quarterback in sight. That's the problem because, you know, Cardinals are always going to be a team that wins 6 games, that wins 7 games. They're going to win 2 or 3 more games this season. They're going to find a way to beat the Rams or find a way to beat the Seahawks. They're going to find a way to win 1 or 2 more games this season. And 6 wins is going to get you, you know, a 17th or 13th or 19th pick in the draft. And all of a sudden, you're going to find yourself on the outside looking in and getting a quarterback, an elite quarterback. That's why they end up with the Ryan Lindleys of the world, the John Skeltons, because they don't draft high enough to go and get them an elite quarterback. Unless they're going to ship off 2 or 3 draft choices to come up in the draft to get someone, which is what they're going to ultimately have to do. You can't keep, you know, drafting 4th and 5th and 6th and undrafted quarterbacks and put them in the game and thinking you're going to get results. It's a reason why guys are being left around in the 3rd and the 4th and the 5th and going undrafted. They have flaws, and they're not ready to be quarterbacks in the National Football League. So you have to go get you something elite. You have to go get you something that was able to flourish in the college ranks and is seen by many, including your own scouting staff, as someone that can come in and play right away, because what you have at quarterback right now is an absolute disgrace. And when you have to bench your quarterback, we're talking about John Skelton and the Arizona Cardinals right now. When you have to bench your quarterback, as Ken Wisenhunt did, for play detrimental to the team, your quarterback is not injured. You know, he didn't get a concussion. He doesn't have a contusion on his arm. His shoulder hasn't been jammed or dislocated. When you just sit a guy down because he's ineffective, that speaks volumes as to how bad you're struggling on offense. Not to mention that the guy behind him is a rookie who has never played a snap in the National Football League. That makes it 10 times worse, because that lets me know that not only is the guy that you have in not performing at all, but that it's so bad that you have to go and turn around and give the football to a guy who you really don't trust to come in and get it done, but you don't have a choice. And that's what Ken Wisenhunt did in this game, and he didn't really have a chance. And it's so sad because you waste a 6 turnover performance by your defense. LeRod Stevens Howling was playing out of his mind in this game. I mean, he gave you over 100 yards. He was gashing, absolutely gashing this Atlanta Falcons run defense, giving you opportunities to score, and you could not do nothing. You did nothing with 6 turnovers. You might have got 13 points off of 6 turnovers. This is unheard of. And so, this was such a pathetic effort by the Arizona Cardinals. The score may not reflect it, but watching this game, piss poor performance. A triple P. A piss poor performance by these Arizona Cardinals, because not only did the Falcons spot you 13, they spotted you 6 turnovers. They gave you every opportunity to blow them out of this game. I mean, if you just take these turnovers that they're giving you and score off of all of them, score 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals off of the first 4 turnovers you got in this game, we're talking about 20 points. A 20-0 deficit in this game for the Falcons would have been large because they were struggling. You know, and Matt Ryan went on to throw 2 more picks in the game. I mean, some of these turnovers, you got prime field position. I'm talking about you're inside of the Falcons' 45, 40-yard line. I mean, 1 first down and you get a field goal, and you couldn't even get that. In some instances, you went backwards and had to punt. I mean, some of these situations that I'm seeing, it's mind-boggling to me that you couldn't even get a field goal out of it. And so the Falcons just found a way. They scratched, they clawed. They found a way to get it done. Matt Ryan didn't throw any touchdown passes. They didn't have a strong day at all for Michael Turner. No one really stood out on the offensive end other than Roddy White. They didn't really do anything on offense, which to speak of. All they did was they did enough on defense. John Abraham was a menace. He got to the quarterback. They forced a fumble. They scooped it up. They scored a touchdown on it. They forced another turnover, and they were able to get in the end zone on the ground. All they did was do enough to beat a bad Arizona Cardinals team, a team that allowed the Atlanta Falcons to turn it over 6 times and still win a game. And that's the definition of a bad football team. When you can get 6 turnovers but still lose a football game. Words don't even describe how bad and how poor you have to play to have that happen. But that's what happened to the Arizona Cardinals against the Atlanta Falcons, who found a way to win the game 23-19, even though they turned it over 6 times. Despite turning it over 6 times, they still get it done and move to 9-1 in the season. That is unreal. Arizona, I don't know what to say. You deserve to lose your 6th consecutive game, and man, do you need a quarterback in the worst way. I feel for Larry Fitzgerald. I feel for Ken Wisenhunt. But look, at the end of the day, if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a chance in the National Football League. And you're finding that out. And I'm pretty sure you already knew that. But it was painful to watch you guys put forth the effort that you did. Have guys running open and see your quarterback just not have the ability to get them the football. Cardinals dropped one 19-23 to the Atlanta Falcons on the road. They go to 4-6 on the season. Meanwhile, the Falcons move to 9-1 on the season. As we continue to go slate skating, we find ourselves in Kansas City, in Arrowhead, where the Chiefs welcomed in the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Chiefs are the worst team in the league. After Jacksonville's performance on Sunday, in conjunction with the Chiefs' performance over the whole season, there's a wedge between them now. Both of these teams stink. Both of these are one-win teams. But Jacksonville is now here. Kansas City is down here now. Not much of an edge. Everybody else is up here. But those two are down here. But Kansas City can't score. Kansas City can't stop turning the football over. Kansas City can't stop self-destructing. And oh, by the way, they don't have a competent quarterback in Kansas City either. So there's a lot left to be desired in Kansas City right now. And what is probably the worst of all of those things is the fact that they have talent. They have talent, and so them not having a quarterback is really holding them back. Them not being able to sustain drives and help this defense out because they turn it over, or they can't get first downs, or they can't score points. It's very maddening. I mean, if you're Romeo Crennel, and I'm pretty sure you go practice every day, you see these guys, you see them working hard, and you don't see it translating on Sundays. You have the talent, you got receivers, you got tight ends, you got running backs. Offensive line isn't that bad. And you ask yourself, what is the problem? Your quarterback is the problem. Your inability to be disciplined is the problem. Your inability to hold on to the football is the problem. There's a lot of problems, one after the other, one just as big, if not bigger than the next. And so you have a myriad of problems to try to figure out. You come into each game each week, and it seems as if nothing changes from week to week. You make the same mistakes. Your quarterbacks do the same things. You look the same on offense. Your defense is fighting and struggling and trying to keep you in games, but your offense does the same things, whether it's a fumble, whether it's interceptions, whether it's your special teams giving up some kind of play. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, these Chiefs stink. And on Sunday, you stunk it up again. At home against the Cincinnati Bengals. This one was a slow death. This one wasn't a quick and painless one like you've suffered in weeks past, this one was a, slow bleed of sorts. It wasn't quick and instant. The Bengals scored a touchdown here. The Bengals scored a touchdown there. The Bengals scored a touchdown down the road. You, on the other hand, were only able to get a field goal here, get another field goal there. That was it. You got 6 points. The Bengals got their scoring started with a fake field goal on 4th down, which worked, led to another 4th down conversion, which ultimately led to a A.J. Green touchdown reception. Later on, they went for it again on 4th down and 4th and goal, naked boot. Andy Dalton gets in the end zone, 14 points there. They tack on another score later on, and then they throw another pass to Mohamed Sanu to wrap up the scoring as they get 28 and you only get 6. Another easy win for the opponents of the Kansas City Chiefs as they're not even competitive. Last week, they were competitive against the Pittsburgh Steelers because everything lined up in their favor. The weather was inclement. The Steelers lost their starting quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger. The weather and the field, everything that the Chiefs needed for them to win. The perfect storm aligned itself, and they still weren't able to get it done. And I said last week, if you couldn't win that game, I don't know when you're going to win again. I can honestly see this Chiefs team being 1-15 this season. They lose again, 28-6. Cincinnati Bengals get it done on the road, and now they're back to 5-5 and back to 500 on the season. So now they're starting to get confidence again, starting to feel like the team that started the season 3-1. And if they can start to make a move, who knows? The Steelers don't have Ben Roethlisberger now. They're not going to have him for the next 2-3 weeks, maybe even a month. This is their time to make a move. If you're going to make a move, now's the time to do it. Because if you don't make a move now and Ben Roethlisberger comes back, your window would have went from here to here would have closed. So if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, now's the time. You got to act. Win games. Hope the Steelers falter a bit because they don't have Ben Roethlisberger's services. See if you can slide into that second slot. And if you can do that, who knows, you may be able to slide right into a playoff spot as well. So they get it done 28-6 on the road against Kansas City. They're now 5-5. And meanwhile, the Kansas City Chiefs are a morbid 1-9 on the season. And honestly, they should be 0-10. They deserve to be 0-10. The New Orleans Saints gave them a gift, an early Christmas present with that victory. Because they should be one of these teams that threaten to be 0-16. They're that bad of a football team. They stink. Both of their quarterbacks played, Brady Quinn, Matt Castle. It doesn't matter. They're interchangeable. They both do the same thing. Absolutely nothing. And so they go down and they lose again. So now they're 1-9 on the season. You look at the next game up on the slate of games on Sunday, and it sees the New York Jets traveling to St. Louis to take on the Rams. This is a game that I was thoroughly disappointed in because I was adamant. And this was a game that I was flat out wrong about. I adamantly came out on the program on Friday and said the Jets are going to be destroyed. This isn't going to be a close game. The Rams are going to exert dominance over these Jets. They're going to get pressure. And the one thing, and this was so disappointing in this game, the one thing that the Rams have been able to do all season long, no matter how bad they've struggled in games, even if they've ultimately gotten blown out, with the exception of the Patriots game, all year long they have harassed quarterbacks. Now, you may have scored 27 points and beat them 27-13. You may have scored 30 points and beat them 30-17. You may have ultimately ran away from them at the end of the game. But they have harassed your quarterback at some point during that game, if not from start to finish. Yet, in this game, they were able to touch the Jets and get to Mark Sanchez. And they don't even have a good offensive line. That was so frustrating for me. They jumped on them early, scored a touchdown, and I said, that's exactly what I expect from this Rams football team. And Sam Bradford took them down the field after they started out doing what I thought they were going to do all day. They got a strip of Mark Sanchez. The Jets did recover, but they had to punt. Sam Bradford takes the ball, drives it down the field, and they run the ball. Good mixture of pass and run. They get in the end zone. Go for it on 4th down, score a touchdown. They're up 7-0, and I said, this is what I expect you to do all day. That would be the last time I saw that would be the last time I saw the Rams look dominant on offense all day long. I mean, they scored that touchdown and they did exactly what they did a few weeks ago. They scored that touchdown on their first possession and did exactly what they did a week. They scored that first touchdown. They scored that touchdown on their opening possession and did exactly what they did 2 or 3 weeks ago against the Patriots in London. They scored early and didn't score again until late in the ball game when the game was already decided. Against the Patriots, they didn't score again. They scored the first touchdown of the game and then gave up 41 unanswered points or something like that. Against this Jets team, they scored the first 7 points of the game and then gave up 27 unanswered and then scored a late touchdown to try to make it look respectable. But utterly disappointed in the Jets. Utterly disappointed in the Rams in this game. I went out on a limb. I put my neck out there for them. And this is what you can't do with garbage teams. Because again, garbage teams make you look silly. You put your trust in them. You give them something that they haven't earned. You give them respect that they have not earned. The Rams are a 3-6-1 football team. What was I thinking giving them anything? Who had they beaten? What have they done to deserve for me to go out and say they're going to dominate someone? When's the last time the Rams dominated anyone? Other than the Cardinals this year on Thursday Night Football. And that wasn't even utter domination because they still only won that game 17-3. So when have they ever dominated? I was out of my gourd. I stepped out of line. And the Jets promptly put me back in my place. And I thank you for that. Even though I can't stand the Jets, they looked like the better team in this game. They went out on the road and beat up on a team that I thought was going to beat up on them. And they showed me that the Rams are still the Rams. Even though Jeff Fisher is their coach, even though Sam Bradford is their quarterback, even though Steven Jackson is their running back, at the end of the day, the Rams are still the Rams. Don't you forget that. The Rams are still the Rams. And they're going to do Ram things. So you get a 27-13 Jets victory. They went on the road. Mark Sanchez didn't turn it over. The running game showed up. They got production out of Bilal Powell. They got production out of Sean Green. That running game helped score points. Mark Sanchez helped score points. Didn't turn it over in this game, which is key for the Jets. When they don't turn it over, they're a hard team to beat when they don't beat themselves. And also, the defense showed up. And they got a turnover, a big turnover in this game. Muhammad Wilkerson strips Sam Bradford. Bart Scott picks it up, rumbles about a good 35 yards, gets the Jets into scoring position. 2 plays later, Mark Sanchez goes up top to Chaz Schillings, gets about a 30-yard touchdown pass, and the game was never the same after that. After that turnover and that turn of events, the Jets took off, left the Rams standing in place, and the Rams didn't know how to counteract. They didn't know how to counterpunch. They got hit in the mouth. Instead of them, swaying and ducking and coming back with their own punch, they just took that one and they kind of went into a shell and they never came out of it. And the Jets took it to them and they won the game 27-13, taking their record to 4-6 on the season. Meanwhile, the St. Louis Rams are 3-6-1 on the season. So as we continue down the weekend that was and go slate skating, one of the most anticipated matchups of the weekend was the Indianapolis Colts traveling into Foxborough to take on the New England Patriots. And this game started out like a heavyweight prize fight. Surprising to me because I thought that this was going to be a grinded out kind of a slow-paced matchup. Of course, the Patriots were going to want to infuse and inject a lot of their up-tempo, no-huddle type style. But I thought the Colts were going to try to counteract that with a lot of running, a lot of short passing game, kind of try to slow the Patriots down to a snail's pace and kind of grind out a victory. But they came in with a different approach, a different mindset, which is, hey, we can score with you. We're not afraid of you. And we don't respect your defense. We're just going to come out, play our brand of football, And we're going to try to outscore you. We're going to try to beat you at your own game. And I thought that was a bad move. That's bad news. You're not on that level yet to go on the road. Maybe if you were at home, you could pull a stunt like that. On the road, though, you want to try to go in and disrespect. This isn't the Tennessee Titans, okay? Let's get that straight first and foremost. This isn't the Tennessee Titans. This isn't the Jacksonville Jaguars. You're not going to go into their house and disrespect them, okay? Now, you need to mind your manners. You're still a little young pup on the block, so you don't go into someone else's house and try to just disrespect them. You can do that to Jacksonville. You can do that to Tennessee. You got to pump your brakes a little bit, though, when you step in the house of someone like the New England Patriots. You tried to go in and you tried to disrespect them. You tried to beat them at their own game. How dare you? I mean, looking up at this game early on, and we got this game late. For those of you out on the West Coast who weren't going to see this at all, us on the East Coast got this game late because we were probably tuning in to one of these late games, whether it was Jacksonville and Houston or it was Dallas and Cleveland. You were somewhere in overtime. And so you didn't get the first part of this game. But if you look down at the bottom of the screen, the Colts were up 7-0 in this game. You're like, oh, okay. They might have got a little kick return or something, or Andrew Luck might have hit Reggie Wayne on a post, or, you know, Donnie Avery or T.Y. Hilton on something short, and they broke a tackle and ran. Yeah, you didn't pay any mind. Okay, they got it on the board first. Patriots tied up, and you said, okay, yeah, that's what I expected. Then they go and get another touchdown, and it's 14-7. Do the Colts, and they take the lead. And now you're like, wait a minute. Is it that easy? Is that what you think that you're going to do today? You're just going to run up the scoreboard? You're just going to score points? Make this a shootout? You think you're that good now? I know you've won a few games in a row, but are you really smelling yourself to the point now where you think you can just score points like that? Now, granted, New England defense is not the best in the world. I will give you that. But still, this is someone else's house. You don't just come in. You don't take your shoes off. You don't just walk in and track mud all around the house. Take your jacket off and throw it on the floor. And just do whatever you want. This isn't that type of party. You come in. You wipe your feet off on the rug. You take your shoes off. You hang your jacket up. And you wait till someone tells you it's okay. You come in, have a seat, make yourself comfortable. No, you wanted to just try to come in, and your shoes are dirty, they have mud on them, you don't take them off, you're tracking dirt around the house, you take your jacket off, you throw it on the floor, you went to the fridge, you've already got yourself a cold beverage, you've made yourself a sandwich, you've gotten quite comfortable. And someone had to bring you back down to earth, and you were in the right house for that. Because now you needed to be brought down a peg. You were starting to smell yourself. You were drinking a little bit of that Kool-Aid. It was tasting good. But you were starting to get ahead of yourself. You're still the Indianapolis Colts. You're still a young team, young head coaching staff, young quarterback, young players. You still got a long way to go. And so the Patriots had to remind you that, look, while you do have a quarterback that's going to be good for a lot of years to come, and you're starting to build something with a defense that doesn't have all the parts that it needs to be as effective as it will be, say, maybe in 2 or 3 seasons. But you're not ready for the prime time yet. You're not ready to go into someone that is elite's house and make noise. You're not ready to beat a Pittsburgh on the road. You're not ready to beat a Baltimore on the road. You're not ready to beat a New England on the road. You're not ready for the show quite yet. Now, you may be able to punch a ticket when it's all said and done to get to the dance. You may be able to do that. You may find yourself at the table that's in the dance when it's all said and done. You've done that. You've earned the right so far, and you still have 5 or 6 games remaining in this season. So you still have a ways to go. When it's all said and done, you may have done enough. But you have not gotten to the point. You have not earned the right to just walk up in someone's house that's good. It's one thing to do it to Jacksonville and Tennessee. It's another thing to do it to New England. And you have not earned the right to do that yet. And so you got ahead of yourself. You scored some points early. New England turned it up. Turned the heat up a little bit on you. Kind of ratcheted that defense up on you. Put a little bit of pressure. And we saw what happens to teams when they get ahead of themselves, when they go too far out in the water, and knowing they can't swim, water starts to get about right here, and they realize, damn, I'm in over my head. Too late now, because that undercurrents pulled you in. You're done. And that's what happened. You got in too deep with this New England Patriots team. You tried to play their style of football instead of trying to slow the game down, slow the pace down. You know, make this a 27-24 matchup instead of a 37-40 matchup. That's what you were on pace to do. And that's not what you wanted to do with this Patriots team. And so they quickly started to turn you over. You made mistakes, being Andrew Luck. And you threw a couple of pick sixes. You turned it over several more times, whether it be a fumble or another interception. You threw 3 picks on the day. You fumbled. You know, they recovered that. You self-destructed as a team. It wasn't just Andrew Luck. The pass protection wasn't the best. You know, Andrew Luck, and I told you last week in the preview of this game, the best way to get to Andrew Luck is to put pressure right in his face. And that's any quarterback in the National Football League. If you get pressure on the outsides and your tackle's able to push them around and they can step up in the pocket, they'll still make throws. That's what the good ones do. They climb the pocket, make you pay. But you get pressure right in their face and they can't go anywhere. That pocket starts to engulf them and they still try to make something happen. You don't get to follow through. That ball sails on you. And that's what happened on that Aqib Talib pick. He tried to make something happen. Vince Wilfork was collapsing that pocket. He tried to throw over the top. It sailed on him, just like it did a week ago in Jacksonville when he threw that pick to DeJuan Landry. It sailed on him. Aqib Talib picked it off, took it to the house. You know, he had to pay for his mistakes. See, when you play bad teams and you make mistakes, you can get away with them, like the Atlanta Falcons did against the Arizona Cardinals. You can throw 6 picks when you're playing the Cardinals because they're not going to turn those turnovers into points. But when you play the Patriots, you want to turn it over 4 or 5 times, oh, best believe you are going to pay. And you're going to pay in the way of 59 points being put on your head. And that's what happened to this coach. This game was at one point, 17-14. I mean, they were right there. They were right there. And then this thing got out of hand quickly. You turn it over, and those points, they don't turn into field goals when you play good teams. They turn into touchdowns. They turn into 7s. And you start turning it over, and this thing starts to snowball out of control. And before you know it, this thing is turned into a huge avalanche that you can't control now. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't get in front of it. Hey, stop! It's just going to roll right over you, engulf you. There's nothing you can do. Too late. That's what happened to the Indianapolis Colts. They went into the house of a bully, tried to smack him around, and realized, I came barking up the wrong tree. Not ready yet. I need to get my weight up. I need to go back to the gym, lift a few more weights, get a little bit more training in, and then come back and see if I can put my dukes up and fight better. But these are big boys here. These are big boys. These are grown men. You're still a little young pup. You're still a little boy. And so you were a boy amongst men in this football game, and you had to pay. And so if nothing else was learned in this game, if you're Indianapolis, all you learned was that, hey, we had a long way to go in this thing. We're okay, but we had a long way to go before we could play with the Pittsburghs, with the Baltimores, with the New Englands of the world. We got a long, long, long way to go, especially when it's on the road. We get at home, we're a tough team to beat. We beat Green Bay at home already. We beat some teams at home that a lot of people didn't think we were going to be able to beat. We beat Minnesota at home. So they've shown that they can play with some good teams, but as long as it's at home. You put them on the road against Chicago, we've seen what happens. You put them on the road against the Jets, and they're not even a good team. We saw what happened. They're not ready to go on the road and encounter a good team. They still have obstacles to overcome, and that's one of them. You put them on the road against a subpar team, a Jacksonville, a Tennessee, hey, that's a divisional matchup. That's family business. We can get it done. But you put them on the road against a good team, you put them on the road against a team that can turn them over. It doesn't even have to be a good team. The Jets aren't a good team. That can turn them over and dominate them. That's what you get. 24-59 drubbing, a rout, in the form of the New England Patriots taking it to and schooling and giving the Indianapolis Colts and Andrew Luck a firm lesson in how to get it done at home. So the Patriots go to 7-3 on the season, and they're grabbing firm control over that division in the AFC East. They but all solidified themselves as AFC East champions with this one. I mean, no one else has a better record than 4-6 in that division, and they're 7-3. So they basically got this thing sewn up like a tailor. Meanwhile, the Colts came back to reality. They were floating on cloud 9 somewhere up here, and they came crashing back down to earth. And it was needed. You know, they started to smell themselves. Smelled good for a while. That deodorant that they were putting on, that winning deodorant, it'll do it to you. It'll have you thinking that you're something that you're not. And this team isn't a great road team yet. And so they got knocked down a peg, but they're still fine. They're 6-4 on the season. And they're right in the driver's seat to get a playoff berth. They have Buffalo, if I'm not mistaken, next week. A prime opportunity to get back in the winner's circle. Don't squander this opportunity. The Bills are not a good football team. Dispose of the Bills. Get your 7th win. Get back on track. You'll be fine. Next up on the slate of games on Sunday in Week 11 of the National Football League was a game that you saw had the potential to get ugly. It had the makings of a blowout. You know, the Oakland Raiders were at home hosting the New Orleans Saints, and you knew this one could get ugly if the Raiders didn't get off to a fast start. If the Raiders struggled early in this game, you knew there was a great chance that they were going to get blown out in this game. Every possession that the Raiders didn't score, didn't drive, didn't keep Drew Brees off the field, every single time they let him back on the field, their chances diminished of keeping this game close. And it started early. Drew Brees took his team right down the field. Touchdown. It's 7-0, just like that. So you say to the Raiders, okay, you need to respond. Even if you don't get points, you need to put a drive together to cool that offense down. Make them sit on the sideline for about a good 10, 15 minutes. Let them stew a bit. And even if you only get a field goal or you get nothing and you punt, pin them in their own territory. Make them go 94 yards for a touchdown. Make them go 91 yards for a touchdown. Make them go 87 yards for a touchdown. But don't you dare give them the football right back. The Raiders said, I do you one better. How about I just throw you a pick six and eliminate Drew Brees even having to step back on the field? Just like that, Malcolm Jenkins picks off Carson Palmer, and it's 14-0. And at that point, if you're watching the game or you're just looking at the bottom of the screen, you know this game's over. Because that's the one thing the Raiders couldn't do, was turn it over and get off to a slow start. Because the Raiders are a team, just like the rest of these bad teams in the National Football League, you get on them early. Doubt starts to creep in, and then they fall apart. Guys start thinking, here we go again. They start pointing fingers. Hey, you were supposed to do this. No, you were supposed to do that. Things fall apart, and you start giving up easy touchdowns. Then all of a sudden, you got Lance Moore running free in your secondary on 3rd and 14. Those are the things that happen when you're not a good football team. And so that pick six was a big blow to the Raiders' chances in this game. And even more back-breaking occurrence in this game was the interception that Carson Palmer threw, a bad interception, off of the hands of Brandon Myers that ended up being picked off by Roman Harper. And now you could put the blame on Carson Palmer. You could put the blame on Brandon Myers. Doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it was an interception in the end zone. It took points off of the scoreboard. You can't do that. And you're already not a good team. You're already behind the 8 ball because you're playing a hot New Orleans Saints team right now that's playing well on offense. And they ran the ball. The bad part was Marcel Reese and the Raiders ran the football ultra effectively in this football game. I mean, Marcel Reese went over 100 yards. The first possession, he was gashing this Saints defense. I shudder to think what would have happened if that was Darren McFadden. We could be talking about touchdown runs instead of 40-yard games. I mean, if this thing turns into a foot race, which it really did, and Marcel Reese just wasn't fast enough to win it, Darren McFadden wins those foot races. We're talking about touchdowns. You know, Marcel Reese catches a pass out of the backfield. And it's funny because I say that tongue-in-cheek because if that's Darren McFadden, trust me, the Saints are probably paying more attention to him if it's Darren McFadden. It's just Marcel Reese. That's what the Saints are thinking. It's just Marcel Reese. So if he catches it out the backfield, runs for another 45 yards, we'll catch him. Don't worry about it. But if that's Darren McFadden, I'm pretty sure there's a defender somewhere looming around, or they at least are cognizant of where he is on the field, because it's Darren McFadden. He touches the ball, big things can happen. So there's a difference there, and maybe you don't get the kind of looks you got if McFadden is in the game. Who knows? All I know is the Raiders were gashing the Saints on the ground, which is what everyone does to the New Orleans Saints. And so opportunities were there for the Raiders to strike in this game. They just did what the Raiders do, and that's turn the football over. And you can't turn the football over in this league and think you're going to win. Even though it happened, twice this weekend, teams turning the football over and still coming away with victories. Doesn't happen that often in the National Football League that you can turn the football over and still come away with the victory. Normally, doesn't work in your favor. Didn't work for the Raiders. Didn't think they were going to be in this game, and they proved me right. They weren't competitive. They lose this game 38-13, taking their record to 3-7 on the season. Meanwhile, the New Orleans Saints improved their record to 5-5, and I said, I think it's too late for them. Honestly, I do. They can't win their division, and at this point, the NFC has been so good this season that I don't know if the New Orleans Saints can come off the pace and get a wild card. I mean, we've already chronicled all the teams, and we'll go over it more in that divisional standing episode, but just know that there's a lot of teams in the NFC right now vying for those 2 wild card spots, and there's a lot of good teams playing good football. You know the North is going to get 1, if not 2, wild cards. They might get both. I doubt it. But it's possible. It's feasible. If the Minnesota Vikings want to continue to play good football, it's not out of the realm of possibility that the North snags both of those wild card spots. You know they're getting one. The Packers or the Bears are going to secure one of those. So now it's about 4 teams fighting for 1 playoff spot. And then you look around and you see the Seahawks are playing good football. You see the Vikings are playing good football. You see Tampa Bay playing good football. You look around at all these teams and you say to yourself, how are you going to leapfrog all these teams? It's possible because you look at the Saints and they're 5-5, and all the teams I just named, they're only 6-4, which means they're only 1 game out. But can you leapfrog every single one of these teams is the question. Did you do too much damage at the beginning of the season that's irreparable that you can't overcome this deficit? I don't know. I think it's too late for them, but if they get hot enough, and I said if, big word, if, biggest 2-letter word in the dictionary, if they can overcome that deficit, if they can get hot enough, they have a shot. And all you can do is keep winning games if you're the Saints, just like you did on Sunday against the Oakland Raiders, 38-13. You're now 5-5. Raiders are 3-7. You have a shot. The Raiders don't. We move on. San Diego Chargers traveled to Denver to take on the Broncos in what was some finale family business. And what I mean by that is the second game of some family business between 2 teams who already met once on the season, and they were looking to wrap up their family business, not to see each other again unless they face each other in the postseason, which we know in this case will not occur. Both of these teams are not getting a ticket to the dance. One and only one team is coming out of the AFC West. We already know who that is. We already know it's the Denver Broncos. But just in case you weren't sure, they had to hammer that point home Sunday against these very San Diego Chargers. And like I said, the only other competent team in the AFC West are these Chargers. So if the Chargers aren't going to unseat these Broncos, nobody will. And so this was it. The Chargers had a chance to beat these very Broncos a month ago on Monday Night Football, had them 24-0 at halftime, blew that lead, and not only did they blow that lead, they imploded. I mean, they gave up 35 unanswered points, did not score in the second half, lost by double digits in a game you led by 24 at the half. Inexcusable, never seen it before in my life, probably will never see it again. However, they had a chance to atone for that. They went to Denver with a chance to get a huge win, pull themselves back to 500 on the season, and knock the Broncos down a peg and have them within a game of the lead in the AFC West. These are all things that the Chargers could have accomplished by beating the Denver Broncos on Sunday. But realistically, did you out there think that this was actually a goal that could have been attained by these San Diego Chargers on Sunday? Raise your hand if you thought the Chargers were actually going to go into Denver and get a win. I don't see any hands. No one thought that they were going to win this game, and rightfully so. The Chargers do this all the time. They implode, which is why I've said on this show time and time again, I've adopted the moniker of the number one rule is you don't trust the San Diego Chargers. And they showed you exactly why you can't do it. Peyton Manning gives them a gift early in this game. A ball is batted into the air. Eric Weddle, the best player on the San Diego Chargers roster, picks it off, takes it to the house. Pick six. Just like that, Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos give you a gift, spot you 7 points. What do you do with that? You allow Peyton Manning to go down the field, get it right back. We're tied at 7. Okay, that's fine. That's what this Broncos offense does. They score points. You get the football back, and what do? Phillip Rivers throws an interception. Turns into a field goal. All of a sudden, it's 10-7. You get the football back after having that turnover, having the Broncos convert that into 3, take the lead 10-7. You get the football. You do nothing with it. For the second consecutive week in a row, you have a punt block. Remember that season, the San Diego Chargers were number 1 on offense in the National Football League, ranked number 1 on defense in the National Football League, and still didn't make the playoffs? Remember that? You remember why they didn't make the playoffs that year? Because they had the absolute worst special teams in the league. Well, it seems like it's starting to creep back into this team this season, as they've had 2 blocked punts in the last 2 weeks. So the Broncos block the punt, and what do? The very next play, Peyton Manning goes up top to Brandon Stokely, and all of a sudden, it's 17-7. So you see where I'm going with this? See the Chargers imploding right before your very eyes? Okay, so they get a safety. Sean Phillips makes a great play on Peyton Manning, sacks him in the end zone, safety. It's 17-9. You feel like, okay, they can make a move now. They're going to get a free kick, and Phillip Rivers can take them down the field. And even if they only get a field goal, then it's a 1-score game. It's already a 1-score game at 9-17, but you get a field goal, it's a 5-point game. Now we're talking about a touchdown puts you ahead instead of a touchdown and a 2-point conversion only ties. So just getting a field goal would have been beneficial. You get 7, man, you're right in this game. Instead, what do? You turn the football over again, leading to another Peyton Manning touchdown pass, this time to Eric Decker. And now you're done. And that's what happens. That's what the San Diego Chargers do. They climb back in the game, or they hang close, or they even have the lead in some instances. Then they self-destruct. And this is why I say it over and over and over and over again. You can't trust the San Diego Chargers. Phillip Rivers is not the guy that we thought he was. And I've already went into great depths as to why he's not that guy anymore. Talked about it ad nauseum. So you know why he's not that guy anymore. But it still doesn't make it any less sad to watch as he implodes week after week after week, throws the big interception week after week after week, fumbles because he's holding on to the ball because he doesn't trust his eyes and doesn't trust his guys out there to win matchups week after week after week. And this San Diego Chargers team loses week after week after week. And so Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos get it done at home to basically cement them winning the AFC West Championship. It's not a foregone conclusion quite yet. It's not done. But we've already started putting the ink on the banners. It just hasn't dried yet. That's it. We already got the banners drawn up that says Denver Broncos 2012-2013 AFC West champions. Those banners are already done. The ink just hasn't dried yet. But as of yesterday, with that win, those banners are finished. And so the Broncos get it done at home, 30-23 over the San Diego Chargers, taking their record to 7-3 on the season, dropping the San Diego Chargers to 4-6, and really putting a stranglehold on that division as they are going to win the AFC West for the second consecutive year. Barring some kind of catastrophic injury or some kind of insane happening, the Denver Broncos are going to win that division. They just took care of the last meaningful piece of family business they'll have all season long. And they did it the way that they needed to do it. By harassing Phillip Rivers, forcing him into mistakes, turning those mistakes into points. So we move on to the juggernaut matchup of the weekend. And this was the big one. This was the 12-round heavyweight fight for supremacy in the AFC North. With the division title on the line, the Ravens put their championship belt on the line against the challenger Pittsburgh Steelers on the road. They went into their backyard, put their titles on the line. Here, our 2011-2012 AFC North crown is on the line. We're putting it on the line because we think we can get it done. So they went into Heinz Field. No Ben Roethlisberger for the Pittsburgh Steelers, which was a huge blow to their chances in this game. But they still got Brian Leftwich. He's a proven veteran backup in this league, and so you knew they still had a shot, but it's not Ben Roethlisberger. It's not the same. There's no Troy Polamalu already. There's no Antonio Brown. They were missing too many pieces to overcome the Ravens on this night. Now, they had opportunities. This defense, and I question whether this defense could be dominant anymore, but they're number one in the league, man. I mean, every time you try to write this Steelers defense off, they're old or they're too young or they're not the same team. There's no Polamalu. There's no Harrison. There's no Woodley. Whatever excuse you want to make as to why they're not going to be the dominant defense they've been for the last decade. They always dispel that notion. And it's a credit to Mike Tomlin because he's a no-excuse guy. And don't care about who we don't have. We're going to play with what we do have. I don't care what we haven't been doing right. We're going to rectify the situation and be good on defense. Whatever's going on with the offense, the defense is going to show up and give us a chance. And that's what they did in this game. Leftwich had an impressive run on the opening drive. I said, wow, maybe the Steelers have a shot in this game. Leftwich takes off. I didn't know he could do this. We didn't even see this in Jacksonville. I mean, he takes off running down the sideline, splits two Baltimore Ravens defenders en route to a touchdown. Amazing. Who saw that coming? However, in typical Byron Leftwich fashion, he falls down in the end zone, and I think he strained his oblique or something because for the rest of the game, he was in obvious pain. And I think that really hindered him in the latter stages of this game because we know Byron Leftwich can rifle the football. Now, you can question his mechanics. You can question his throwing motion. But you cannot, I repeat, cannot question his arm strength. It's second to none. And you could see he was struggling. I mean, he was one-hopping passes that he could throw in his sleep. You know, guys were open and he wasn't able to get him the football. And I think a large part of that was because of that injury he sustained on that touchdown falling down. It's amazing that he was basically untouched on that play and he hurts himself falling down in the end zone. Hard for me to fathom that. But again, Byron Leftwich has been someone that has been injury prone his whole career. So while I was amazed at the run, I wasn't amazed at the outcome when he fell down in the end zone, because he's a guy that gets injured. But it really hurt them moving forward in this game. That touchdown came at a price. And as well as this defense played, they did not give up a single touchdown in this game. The special teams let the Steelers down. I mean, you take away that Jacoby Jones punt return for a touchdown. And I've already talked about how Jacoby Jones has impacted this Ravens team. I put him right behind Vincent Jackson. If not 1A, 1B, they're neck and neck in terms of best free agent acquisitions in the offseason. He's been dynamite, stellar for these Ravens, not only in the return game, but as a receiver. But again, he showed his value for this Ravens team on special teams. So he takes a punt return, takes it about a good 75 yards, 60 yards for a touchdown, splits the defense, outruns the punter, touchdown. And that was really the difference in the game, because the Steelers weren't giving it up on defense. They weren't allowing this Ravens team to get in the end zone and score points. It was vital that the Steelers somehow get a touchdown. And they got down there. This was the bad part. They got down there with an opportunity to score, and they couldn't get in. And they had to settle for a field goal. And in the back of my mind, I said to myself, man, and this was like a fourth and a short situation. I said to myself, but it was a lot of time left in the game, so I didn't second guess his decision to kick the field goal. But I said to myself, man, Mike, I don't know if you're going to get back down here again, man. I think you should go for this. I think you need 7. But he was looking at it from the standpoint of, look, we get this field goal. It's a 3-point game. All we need is one more field goal to at least tie the game. We come away with nothing here, then we need a touchdown to win. We get a field goal here and somehow muster together, whether it's a turnover or a big play, or we just matriculate the ball down the field. All we need is a field goal to tie it up. Touchdown wins the game either way, but the field goal will tie it up. And so I couldn't go against his thinking, but I was saying to myself, man, Mike, I don't know if you're going to get back down here again, man. It's been a tight ball game. You struggled to put together drives. Leftwich is hurting. I don't know. I don't know if you're going to get back down here, man. You might want to think about going for this, trying to get a touchdown. But he kicked the field goal. Ultimately, they never got back down there again. And the Ravens were able to hold on in this game 13-10. And nothing short of a Baltimore-Pittsburgh football game. I mean, it was hard fought. It was hard hitting. It was low scoring. It was punch, counter punch. This is what you've come to expect when you get the Ravens and the Steelers squaring off. This is what you've come to expect. Nothing more, nothing less out of this game. You're going to get a hard-fought game between two teams that don't like each other, that respect each other, but don't like each other. And you know it's going to be hard-hitting, low-scoring, and the team that makes the least amount of mistakes is going to win the game. And that's what happened. The Steelers didn't make that many mistakes. They made one glaring mistake on special teams. It cost them. It was the biggest mistake in the game. That's what it all boils down to. Who makes the least amount of mistakes in these games? And it doesn't have to be any. Neither one of these teams had turnovers for the most part in this game. Neither one of these teams really made any egregious errors in this game. It was hard fought, a lot of good sound defense. Nobody really gave up big plays except one, and that's the one that came back to bite the Steelers. The Ravens gave up that one run to Byron Leftwich on the first possession. But for the most part, that was it. I mean, no one really got in the end zone in this game. Each team got one touchdown. That was it. Take your field goals and be happy. And so you knew what you were getting when you got into this game. Like I said on the preview last week, this game meant more to the Ravens. Even though the Steelers were the home team in this game meant more to the Ravens. Because if you're the Ravens and you can't beat the Steelers without Ben Roethlisberger, what does that say about you? And so they had to have this one. Because there's no doubt in my mind, if there's a healthy Ben Roethlisberger in this game, Steelers win this game. There were opportunities in this game for plays to be made. They just weren't made because Ben Roethlisberger wasn't in the game. Some of them can be chalked up to that injury that Byron Leftwich sustained on that first touchdown drive, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the Ravens were the better team in this game. They got it done. But if you're the Steelers, and Mike Tomlin's a no-excuse guy. He won't allow them to make excuses. So the Steelers aren't going to give you any excuses. But if you're a Steelers player, you're saying, if Ben played in this game, we win. And so if you're the Steelers now, your goal is to not let this thing snowball into 2 or 3 losses. You lost this game. Put it behind you. You got a tough Cleveland Browns team on the road. Had this been a home game, you probably could have shown up and got a win. Going to Cleveland is a dangerous proposition. They're playing better football, and they're dangerous at home. Both of their wins this season come at home. This is family business. They always play you tough, so you know it's going to be a dogfight. You have to go into Cleveland, and you should be able to do this without the services of Ben Roethlisberger. You should be able to go into Cleveland, run the football, be steady on offense. Nothing explosive or immaculate. Just make the plays that are there to be made. You make enough of those, the Browns will give you opportunities to score touchdowns. You take them, you run with them, you do enough to win this game. Stop this at a 1-game loss. Don't make this into a 2-game streak. You do that, you come back into that game in 2 weeks against the Ravens, and all of a sudden, maybe Ben Roethlisberger is able to go. Maybe he gives you a spark and you can beat them at M&T Bank. And even if he doesn't come back, you should be fine either way because you know you can beat these guys if you don't make the big mistake. And so the Ravens got it done, 13-10, taking their record to 8-2 on the season. Meanwhile, the Steelers, this was a very debilitating loss to them because they were only a game behind these Ravens in the division. That's it, just 1 game. And now this loss not only takes them 2 back, putting them at 6-4, 2 games behind the 8-2 Ravens. It puts them behind them by 2.5, essentially 3 games because now they own the tiebreaker, do the Ravens. So even if they would have finished tied, the Ravens would own that tiebreaker right now. But there's 1 more game to go. The Steelers must have that one if they want any shot of winning that division. And so we'll see how it all shakes out. The most important thing for the Steelers right now is to put this loss behind them. Go get a win at Cleveland next week. Handle your family business the way you are supposed to. And then let that Ben Roethlisberger injury be the next thing you worry about. Because his health is tied to the success of your season. You can't undo them away from each other. You can't pull them apart. This is Ben Roethlisberger. This is the success of the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can't take them apart. With him comes your success. You got no Ben Roethlisberger, you got no success. So we'll see what happens moving forward. And that's a touchdown. Go ahead and throw it up. That's your Sunday slate of games. That was the weekend that was. We just went slate skating. Now I want to tack on quick extra point. And watching these games over the weekend, it was a thrill. A lot of close games, 3 overtime matchups. And so, things could have went in a different number of ways. But they didn't. And I ended up 12-1 on the week thus far. Got a chance to go to 13-1 with Monday Night Football, and that's going to be the extra point today. The Chicago Bears are traveling to San Francisco to take on the 49ers. Jay Cutler's not playing, so Jason Campbell will get the start. They haven't said if Alex Smith is going to play. He's going to play. He wasn't ruled out for a reason. He's been going through practice, even though it's been, light practices and not probably taking any of the reps in practice. Pretty sure he's going to be ready to go tonight. He's going to get cleared by the doctors at some point today. They're going to make him the starter tonight at some point, officially, for the 49ers. Either way, I was confused when I picked this matchup. I thought the Bears were at home. That's why I picked the Bears. But I made the pick. I'm going to stick by it now. It's too late to go and change it. It's already been done. I'm not a waffler. If that's who I think is going to win, which in this case I really don't, but that's what I put down, that's what I'm going to go with. And so this Bears team can get it done, though. They force turnovers. The one thing that no one else in the league can say that they do at the extreme, efficient, and alarming rate that the Bears defense does is force turnovers. You can even sprinkle in a little bit of their special teams, too. They force turnovers as well. And so this Bears team can get it done. But it's like looking in the mirror. They both play sound defense. They both don't have the best of offenses. The Bears have a better quarterback than the 49ers do. But their running back situation is equal. Gore, Forte. It's just hard. And so these are two teams that are very evenly matched. They predicate themselves on their defense and being able to, shut teams down defensively and create offense for their offenses, for their teams. And so this is going to be a hard-fought game. It's going to be one of those gritty, drag down, knockout, slobber knockers, where you get two defensive-minded teams that just go at it. And just like I said about this Baltimore-Pittsburgh game, whoever makes the least amount of mistakes will win this football game. And I think that team has a chance to be the Chicago Bears because they force mistakes. Don't know if the 49ers force as many mistakes as the Chicago Bears. I mean, the Bears really put pressure on you to execute. And the minute you slip up and make a mistake, the minute a ball is tipped in the air, the minute you're loose with the football, they rip it out. They pick it off. They're a very opportunistic defense, more so than anyone else in the National Football League. And I think they can do that to this San Francisco 49ers team. Strip the football. Force Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick, doesn't matter who it is. Force them to be one-dimensional. Force them into some mistakes and get turnovers. I think they can win on the road. 23-16, 19-16, something like that. I'm going to go with the 19-16 variety because I don't think it's going to be a lot of touchdowns in this game. I think it's going to be a lot of field goals being kicked in this game. So we'll see. I think one team's going to score a touchdown and 4 field goals. I think the other team's going to score 1 touchdown and 3 field goals. And I think the Bears are going to be victorious, take their record to 8-2 on the season. Meanwhile, the San Francisco 49ers would drop to 6-3-1 on the season. And that's going to do it for me today. Long episode. Got a lot more things coming at you. I am finally ready to give you the divisional episode. It's been a long time in the making. I put the finishing touches on everything that I need to. Now I just need to give you the content that you need to get you ready to wrap this season up, to get you down the stretch, to figure out who are legitimate threats to make the postseason. I'm coming your way with that information here shortly. I thank you for bearing with me as I've been talking about this for the last 2 weeks. Haven't come to fruition quite yet, but it's coming now. And so stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for the Redskins report. Thank you for joining me on this Monday. We had a lot to get to. We got to it. I thank you for sticking around and bearing with me. And I hope you enjoyed your weekend as I did. Hope you enjoyed tonight and the football that is going on. Again, view the show on Facebook. Like the page. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. Also on Twitter, @In the Lab Room is the Twitter handle. Follow me. Drop something in the inbox. In the Lab Room @gmail.com is the inbox. Also on YouTube, which is the most efficient way to access the show. On YouTube, Louis T is the page. Subscribe to it. Like my videos. Make a comment on the video. I'll see it immediately. Thank you for joining me. Want to see you back here. Same time, same place. And as always, enjoy tonight. Enjoy the festivities. Enjoy the football. We'll come back tomorrow, talk about what we saw, go over the game, I'll go over my record for the weekend, and we'll start to move forward with the next week, week 12 in the National Football League. See you tomorrow. Have a good one.